Hello, hello. Welcome to the stream. I have a peculiar task today. I just got dimensions for the hardcover edition, at least I believe it's the hardcover edition, of Do, Fate of the Flying Temple. Whether or not it's hardcover or not, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it is, but regardless. The dimensions I have for this mocked up cover that I have way back in the day, if you saw some of my earlier videos a few months ago when I was designing this cover, these were based on sort of assumed specs, based on some previous softcover editions of the books that we've done before. Well, the dimensions that we just got from the printer are quite different, and you can see that this what I've set up here is a sort of a bright magenta template, and you can see some little things that I would need to adjust. Some of which are in InDesign, for example. All of these text blocks and all that, those are in InDesign, and that's easy to move around. Even this bit of art is actually a semi-transparent TIFF that is on a transparent background. So even that I can move up and down and adjust as needed. But there are some deeper bits of art here that are not in InDesign. They're in fact part of a flattened TIFF that is exported from a layered PSD. Which you saw me working on all those months ago. So they're less easy to edit, but I thought you might want to see how I do that, perhaps, and maybe I can talk through it, and maybe there's something useful that you can glean from that whole process. Let's go to Photoshop, where this original file is. I've already saved a copy of this, so it's not going to destroy the original version of this cover design. You can see that I've got a whole bunch of these guides that I've already made, and I'm going to adjust those guides based on these new template specs. So let's get started with that first. I'm just copying these guides that I've picked up from InDesign, bringing them into Photoshop, making sure that they're the top layer so I can actually see them. There we go. And I am going to lock that layer so I don't mess with it any further. Right, now that said, there are full-on dimensions here, 14.375 that I need to adjust. So I'm expanding the canvas size of this document. Not increasing the image size, I'm just increasing the canvas, which means that the overall sort of artboard is going to grow without adjusting the size or the resolution of any of the constituent layers. So that is 14.375. And then the height is 10.75. Not too far off, thankfully. Okay, so now you can see that the canvas has been expanded, and some of the elements that were previously hidden behind the edge of the canvas are now visible here. And you can see how I've set up a lot of the textures here. Originally, this was a scan of a actual physical book that I have in my library. It's actually my wife's journal. She had hand bound. And I scanned that texture and then overlaid it, and you can even see a few seams that stuck in that I didn't deal with at the time because I thought, hell, this is never going to be seen again, at least this far out. Well, just my luck. We're setting this up so that the print will actually fold around the edges of the what I presume to be the hardcover. Again, I'm just kind of guessing on that. So I need to make sure that I get a good, clean, consistent texture flowing all the way to the very edge here, on the very slim chance that any of these graphics get misregistered during the process of actually gluing the print onto the hardcover substrate. Now, I've got this template set up. I'm going to adjust my guides here according to the new specs. Removing this from my thing here. Moving this to the mid here. Moving that. Removing that. Removing that. And the reason I'm just using these guides at all is because I want to be able to turn off a template in case it obstructs my view. It's easier to do that if they're guides instead of just like a layer. And move that a little bit to the right. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna turn off that layer, and yeah, okay. So here are the various layer groups that I have set up, and I have a lot of stuff I can do here to increase the texture. I can do some clone stamping around the edge, perhaps. I can do some content-aware fills, perhaps. But before I do any of that, I want to make sure that the actual central graphics, this art and all that is actually centered. So what I'm going to do is nudge the front. Make sure all that's done. Okay, there. And make sure that all of the masks are locked in place as well, because I don't want to move any contents without also moving the mask along with them. Looks like everything's good and in place. Right on. So now that I've got all these layers selected, I'm just going to nudge over to the right a little bit and keeping an eye out to make sure, oh, yep, there's some elements that aren't carrying over here. And I wonder if that's this layer. Is it that layer? Yep, sure is. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'm just going to nudge this, and I can worry about one layer at a time here. And basically what I'm trying to do is make sure that this opening, this like window within that front is actually centered, more or less. Thankfully, the vertical is pretty well centered. It's just this horizontal that needs to be adjusted. All right, with that done, there are some elements that need to be adjusted here. Let's turn off some stuff here and see what's actually showing up. All right, and let's move that. Aha, yes. Cool, and now that's roughly lined up. More or less. And this is curious. I'm going to remove these lines because it looks like it's a mask that is not even supposed to be here. So I'm just using my black brush tool to color in this whole thing. And then there's this, which I'm not sure what the heck that is. What is that? Oh, I see. Okay. So there's actually a corner here that I do want to include. I bet that's going to interfere with some plans that I have. But for now, let's see how this looks. I don't know if you can even see it, but there's this little curlicue corner here that I have. Okay, so there's that. And this is a little bit too severe. I'm going to soften that mask just a bit. So go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And that's a little bit too much. Maybe 5, maybe, I don't know, 3 pixels. Just enough so you can get the shape, but not so much that it looks so pixelated. There, that softened up just nice. All right. So now we've got that relatively centered. Now you see the problem here is that because I flattened this whole thing like a silly dumb, I need to also center the back cover. So I'm gonna make a copy of this red border. Wait, hold up. I need to make this normal. You can see that instead of actually trying to make a like a mask that fit every single little detail of this fuzzy edge, instead I left that edge white, and I elected to use a layer effect called multiply, and that basically turns any white or any light areas invisible, and anything darker than white is semi-transparent and darkens whatever is behind it. It's a very useful tool for letting things like hair or fur or anything like a fuzzy sweater recede into the background without having to go through the trouble of making like a mask that covers every single one of those little details. It's an old trick, but the drawback of it is that if you layer 2 of these things on top of each other, as so, then everything gets even darker, and that's not a darkness that I actually want in this piece. So what I'm going to do is first make both of these layers normal. I'm going to make a layer group that is going to contain both of them, and I'm going to call that red cover. Not red cover. Rad cover. Red cover. I'm going to call this one back cover border. I'm going to call this one front cover border. Cool. And with that done, I am going to choose the layer group and apply the multiply layer effect to that layer group, which will keep each of these individual textures solid relative to each other, but as a whole will have a multiply effect applied to them. So I'm taking this back cover border and nudging it to the left, and I'm setting it up as much as possible so I can center it. I'm going to turn off the front border for the time being. Turning off that info block too, because I just really want to center this and focus on getting that centered just correctly. Eyeballing that, it looks pretty accurate. Now, one piece at a time, I'm going to bring other elements in here. So I noticed that there is this whole business here. And I suppose, so there's that. That isn't so bad. What is? I'm trying to find whatever is this back here. There's so many little bits of layers that I've used here that are just hard to pin down. It's hard to tell when something's actually a mask or something more. At the very least, I know to bring this a little bit to the left here. Ah, here it is. Yeah, it's a layer mask. All right, so that is something I need to decouple. Nudge over to the left. These are tiny, subtle little details. You can barely even see it on screen, but it's important to keep them in mind. Just a little bit here and there, you know? All right, centering this. All right, so next layer I'm gonna reintroduce is actually gonna be the back cover info block thing. This is where the text is gonna appear back in this InDesign file where I have all this text. That's where it's gonna go. So let's nudge this layer group over to the left a bit so that it corresponds to where I need it. And how do I have that set up? Going back to InDesign here just to see how my original cover design works. All right, so I have this border along the left that I need to make sure I can still see. Nudging that a little bit, maybe one more nudge, maybe back a little bit. All right, so there's that. And then now I can bring in the front border again. And you can see how things sort of overlap in a weird way here. What I'm gonna do, first off, one thing at a time here. Back cover, I am going to fill this whole business with white, since it is supposed to be transparent. And this whole thing I'm going to fill with white for the front, making sure that getting that whole thing. All right. Okay, so now I have a whole bunch of content, a whole bunch of pixels on the back cover border that are extending way far into the front border's territory, and I have vice versa. I have a lot of material that's on the the front cover border that's extending into the back cover territory. What to do? I am going to make a gradient mask. Right here, you can see that where I am sort of hovering. And I have the gradient tool selected, that's right here, and I'm making sure that I have the opaque to transparent mode turned on. I'm gonna have normal gradients, and let's zoom in here, and I'm going to extend. I'm just looking where the edge of the front border, the left side of the front border is. I want to make sure I'm well within that area before I make this mask. But I also want to stop it just before it gets to the middle of the spine, because that's where there's less stuff to blend in with each other. What I'm hoping is that when I make this mask, I can blend in a little bit. And let's see. Let's do this, make this mask. All right, and it appears my main issue is that I don't have enough material to fill in the gap in that spine. So I'm deleting this, and I'm making actually a third layer here. That is going to be the spine fill. Okay, and then I'm going to make a mask for this that is actually going to cover both the left and the right sides. Basically, this is going to be in the turn. So with this, I can afford to cover up quite a bit more material since it's going to be filled in with the spine fill. Fill in this bit. Let's turn off this template and see how this is looking. You can see there's some repeated patterns here that if you had a close eye, you can see where the blurs are and where the blends are. But this is going to be at the turn of the spine, so it's not as much of an issue. You don't have to worry so much about it. Similar situation here along the outer edges. Thankfully, now that I've extended this spine and widened it significantly, it's given me plenty of room along the left and the right to go all the way past the bleed. My primary areas of concern now are the top and the bottom. And you can see where I did have just pure oversight on my part, an area here along the top that I failed to blur the edges a little bit and blend that in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy all three of these layers. I'm gonna merge them together. Let's call this top fill. Moving this up to the top. And let's actually turn this, because I don't have a raw copy here to mess with this too much, I'm actually going to turn this upside down, because the bottom seems to be the more well-blended area. Edit, transform, rotate 180. Okay. And now I just need to make another mask and use the gradient tool to blend from the edge and I'm nudging this down a little bit so that I can cover up those hard edges. So there's that. And I'm going to do this again. Again, if you had an eagle eye, you could spot these seams, but for the most part, these areas are actually going to be behind it, like not even visible. They're going to be pasted over when you actually make this hardcover version. So with that done, I'm going to merge those layers, and now what's created is this very simple bar of this patterned cloth texture. With that having been made, I can copy that, call it bottom fill, nudge this down. Oops, I don't make a copy of that, I just want to move it down. Let's rotate that. Nudging this down. Moving this down, and I want to get it. The bottom is not nearly as bad as the top, as far as the visible seams are. So I'm just going to nudge this until I get it to just about where I think it could, pass a quick glance muster. All right, so that seems right for the time being. I am going to save this as a flattened TIFF. Cover hardcover. Make a new folder for this. Cover. Hardcover. Save that. That's going to be updating in my Dropbox for a little bit here. So if you're watching the stream live, you may notice a little bit of static or stuttering in my feed. My apologies for that. Let me pause this for 1 minute so that the stream doesn't get affected. All right, back to InDesign. Now, with all of that having been done, I can delete that graphic, and for the sake of organization, let's make this whole background image the background image, and lock everything else for the time being, just for now. Let's import what we just made. Now, where the heck did it go? Saved it to cover, right. Hardcover. Bring that in. So there's that. Cool beans. Now you can see some of the elements that are now misaligned, having been resized. You can see the author credits are a little bit too far to the left. The back cover copy is a little bit too far to the right. All this needs to be adjusted. So I'm going to lock the background layer here, and let's bring in some of this stuff. Nudge that. Now the reason I use InDesign for some text and then use Photoshop for others is kind of situational. For the most part, I use InDesign if there's large amounts of copy that needs to be absolutely crystal crisp vector. Whereas if you use Photoshop for text and you export it, it tends to be bitmapped, a little bit rasterized, not as sharp as it could be, even if you export it at 300 dpi. That's my experience anyway. So in these cases, I am adjusting things in InDesign, adjusting it to the left, to the right. There's that. Okay. So taking a look at this, everything seems okay for the most part. So with that, that pretty much covers the whole process that I would normally go through when I have to do a resize like this. We saw how to use layer masks, how to merge layers, how to do very simple gradient passes so that you can blend in textures with each other, how to use multiply to blend in some soft edges with high resolution textures in the background. Hopefully that was useful, and I'll look forward to talking to you again. See ya.